Well, hey everyone, and welcome back. And it's good for me to be back. Um, it's been a while since I've recorded. Thanks for the continued interest in the videos that I've done over the last couple of years, including the last couple around the WD1. This is the Korg vintage electronic drum. Got a lot of great feedback, and your interest and enthusiasm is much appreciated. I've been wanting to get back online, and now I've got a couple things that I can show us together. My usual foray into electronic music, acoustic instruments, signal processing, kind of going through the usual and mostly exploratory stuff that I do here. This is usually derived from some of the stuff I'm doing in, my music composition or arranging or recording. And if I come into something interesting or fun, I like to share it with people. And here we are. So first things first, I want to show you this crazy instrument. It is called a Telepathic Instruments Orchid. It's called an Orchid. The company is Telepathic Instruments. This has been around for about a year. They just recently had a drop, and you don't know what inventory they have and whether you're going to get one or not. So you take your chances and you put your name in to the mailing list or whatever. In my case, it did pop up, and I was able to make an order. So lucky me. They're pretty rare, and they're rare supply, small supply. I've seen them on eBay going for $1,000 or more. Now, the instrument itself is kind of a hybrid. It is a synthesizer. It has its own built-in sounds. It also is a controller, and that can be handled as a controller via MIDI or via USB. And so it's really got three outputs or ins and outs. The audio, which is just a 8mm phone jack, and then those two MIDIs, as I mentioned, well, USB and an actual MIDI out. The USB can be used for other things like firmware updates and so forth as well. And then there's a little UI that's built into this, which is kind of really innovative. It's got some controls. It's got a little on-screen display. It's got like a 12-key, one-octave keyboard, which is pretty limited, but you'll see how it functions. There's these rotary dials here, one for voicing for chords, one for voicing for bass. I'll kind of explain what those do. And then there's these keys for establishing chord variations. Diminished, minor, major, suspended, and then it adds a sixth, minor seventh, major seventh, and a ninth chord. And what happens is if you play a note, you kind of trigger a chord, and you can establish a key. So in my case, I'm setting up to D minor. And when you hit a note, it will basically just trigger that chord based on what settings you selected. So in this case, you're hearing it. It's got an arpeggiation selected. It's got some effects applied. It's got a sound over here. This sound feature allows me to pick different tones. And then, as I mentioned, I can do all these things with these buttons. So since D minor is my key I'm anchored on, default is D minor, but if I hit the major, I'm going ahead and hit major, major suspended, minor suspended, adding the sixth, minor seventh, keeps it minor in the key signature, and the ninth. And then the other thing is, so you can see I can rotate that little rotary dial, and that in turn changes the voicings. So what happens is the keyboard continues to arpeggiate, but it will cycle. It'll move the sort of frame of what notes are included in the inversion, and it'll update the arpeggiation dynamically. We'll do that with the bass as well. So you can hear that when I hit this note, there's a chord, there's arpeggiation, and there's a bass note. If I go to a different chord, it kind of cycles through. And so now what you've got is the ability to, just trigger with single notes, trigger chord progressions. It's great for composition, great for kind of exploring very quickly. What you're hearing is one patch. I think it's just something like patch number 3 or number 4 on the instrument. There is a synth, actually 3 synth modules in the instrument. Let me just put the manual up on the screen here, and you can see just how rich of a application this thing really is. All right, so I'm just going to kind of zoom the table of contents around a bit, and you can see there's audio, there's MIDI, there's USB-C, there are sound selections, there are chord swing settings and voicings, as I've been talking about, the notation which shows up in the little window there. And then there are performance modes for arpeggiation and strumming. There are effects. There's a looper built into it. There's the bass separate from the chord voicings. And then further, there are things like quantization, and then the synth engine. The synth engine is it's got 3 synths. It's got an I think an FM synthesis mode. It has an electric piano, or like a kind of an electric keyboard, and then it has well, let's see, what does it have? Yeah, polyphonic virtual analog subtractive synth, FM synthesizer, and a vintage reed piano emulator. Okay, so, the cool thing about this is, in fact, that the device doesn't just come standalone. It also offers, Telepathic Instruments has something called the Pistil. The Pistil is a plugin, you can see it over here, like a VST or an AU plugin, that actually is a mirror of the onboard synthesizer units inside of the Orchid. And so what happens is as you play here, you can see that it's triggering the keys there, and all of the configuration and settings that are available for the onboard synths can be controlled from the plugin. But that's not all. The plugin actually is a synth. It's not just a control unit for the device, but it actually has its own audio out. So right now I'm just letting you listen to the Orchid through that little analog output from the device. Just, the 1/4 inch or phone jack, or the 1/8 inch. Sorry. And now what I'm going to do here, though, is I'm going to switch that off. So now you're not hearing anything. You're going to hear now the Pistil. And the Pistil itself is basically a digital version it's a digital version of the, and you don't need to use the Orchid to play it. You can play it with a conventional keyboard. And so that's cool, because now you can just play the sounds from the Orchid, in your DAW as a standalone instrument. Also, when you change settings here, when you have your Orchid connected, it changes the sounds in the Orchid as well. I'm not sure whether I like that feature or not, because, I may want to explore different sounds. So we'll see. This is in beta still, in fact, the Pistil. So, a couple other things. I'm going to go ahead and say that the MIDI is very, very versatile in this instrument. What it allows is, of course, I'm looping the MIDI out into my KO2, and I have a sample here from Piano Bank just loaded in, but I could put any sample I want or any loops I want in there, and I can trigger the instruments, so they're just connected to each other using the MIDI out. There's just a conventional barrel out that goes into a MIDI input into the KO2. So what happens is if I want to, I can play sounds in the Orchid. And then, riff on the KO2. And then the other thing I can do, though, is I can split the MIDI outs. And so what I've done is I have a USB connection to my computer, and I'm running MIDI out of there. And you can see in my stacked tracks here that I got 3 outputs, channel 1, channel 2, and channel 3. And you can assign those MIDI note outs, and then you can assign different, obviously, just treat them like different inputs. But in fact, you're just playing one note over here, and you're triggering arpeggios and chords and bass notes, and you can change the voicings. Everything that you do with the UI here, it passes through as MIDI and is affecting the other sounds as well. So what I've got is I have a chord patch. So now you're hearing just from Logic. The MIDI is being triggered here. And then I have a arpeggiation track. Okay. And then I have a bass track. Cool. Actually, I'll just turn that off. Yeah, and now what I can do is I can layer all those as you'd expect. So here's what they sound like. Just now the tracks without the Orchid itself. So that's pretty cool. And now if I want, I can add all of these instruments together and let this play as a full ensemble, right? Which is pretty fantastic. Yeah, so, kind of the combination of the MIDI, and I'll just play a little bit with the voicings here. You get the idea. So now what's going on there is everything I do with the controller, I can record. It takes those MIDI note events and just renders them, and then I can apply other patches to them later. I can play live this way. I can play standalone. It actually has speakers, stereo speakers built into it. Or I can integrate it into any kind of combination of rig that I want. Ultimately, it is kind of limiting in the sense that you're not going to be able to sit down and play it like a traditional keyboard instrument where you can riff on it and, play melodies and stuff like that. It's just not what it's for. It's more like the button side of an accordion a little bit, where, you can sort of play the notes and then trigger chords. So if you want to kind of think about it like a very sophisticated digital accordion, that might actually be a more, useful analogy to imagine how to use it in composition. But just to kind of give you this fluency with key and with chords and with structures and arpeggiators and, kind of having all that at your fingertips this way, it allows you to kind of do some interesting things compositionally that maybe based on your skill level or your knowledge of music theory or things like that, you have limited abilities with, which I consider myself among. So I'm really happy with the sort of creative opportunities, and I think that's what the designers of the instrument had in mind. So right on, guys. I think it's very cool. All right, that's the end of Act 1. Act 2 is going to be now a completely different, now for something completely different. This is the other instrument I mentioned at the beginning. This is a Chinese baritone zither, an open tuning instrument called a Goo-Chin. I ran across this instrument primarily because I heard the sounds and tried to figure out what was making them in some recorded music. And this is what I found out. This Guqin instrument is, kind of like a fretless instrument. I love the fretless bass. I love upright. I love the oud. Lots of different fretless instruments. And to me, this just felt like the next one in line. And with that, what I've done is I've done my usual setup where I've connected this instrument to a signal chain. And that signal chain is going to go through the Raspberry Pi and, connect to MIDI and acoustic instruments. So let's have a look at that. Sorry for the moment. Okay, cool. So what you've got here is the Guqin, which has a piezo pickup just clipped to the sound hole here. And that in turn is being sent to Sonus G2M, which is a little device that converts audio inputs to MIDI. But in addition, I have this sound running to the Raspberry Pi. So both MIDI and audio from the Guqin are running into the Pi. The MIDI is going through this thing called the Dext, which is a little DX7 emulator. And I've got a patch picked for that that's kind of a mild tones, like a tines of an electric piano. And then I'm passing it through a reverb and then back into my DAW. And on the DAW, the audio from the Guqin is also being processed here. And there's another reverb stage and like a denoiser from the piezo microphone, as well as something called a space designer, which is a kind of IR-based reverb unit that I can set up to add some tonal richness to it. Okay, and I'm going to unmute it, and I'm going to tell you that this is an open tuning, and I'll play the open tuned instrument here. So you can hear how lovely just right out of the box this thing sounds. Again, you're not hearing just the instrument, you're hearing the rig that I have set up. But hey, whatever, this is the way I do it. If you want to hear a Guqin performed acoustically, there are thousands of YouTube videos about it, and they're by master players. I'm exploring and experimenting. This is a student model. I'm not expecting it to sound beautiful, but with the augmentation that I like to do, now I have something that, for me anyway, is inspiring for composition and performance. All right, so let me try to play something on it. All right, so what you're hearing is, again, that combination of acoustic and electronic, of MIDI and of the raw tonality of the instrument with a lot of processing. That's a kind of cool combination for me. I've done it with the fretless bass here. I've done it even with a stylophone, and now I'm doing it with the Guqin. I'll continue to explore here and probably record and publish a couple of compositions or just sketches where I attempt to use the instrument in a musical setting. But I just wanted you guys to see what was going on here, and would love your feedback. Any ideas about something I'm doing, or even suggestions about something I'm not doing or could do better. Happy to hear from you, and happy to keep publishing occasionally. So thanks for subscribing if you have, and enjoy the music and the videos, and hope to see you all soon.